often I think is everyone's aligned at the start. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, we know what we're trying to achieve. We're all trying to get to the same goal. We know what we're doing. We know what we're setting out to do. But what's actually going on often is there's quite different expectations that are not actually surfaced. And so trying to get that alignment is really about, as you start and as the engine starts to build up and run, what's really going on? Have we truly got alignment? Authentic leadership builds trust, right? So how do you get that connection with the team that you're leading, whatever level within the transformation that is really about how you conduct yourself and run throughout the program. You build that trust. People start to look at you and trust in you because you're seeing someone who's calm under pressure, able to help resolve situations and problems that are going on, and not necessarily just resolve them yourself, but enable and empower teams to be able to resolve those problems as well.
Welcome to the Tech Waka podcast, where we dive into the journeys of New Zealand's top tech leaders. Your host for today is Jakub, bringing you conversations with tech leaders and innovators from across Aotearoa. Join us as we uncover the experiences, challenges, and successes that shape our tech community.
This episode of the Tech Waka podcast is proudly brought to you by Wires Uncrossed, lifting the standard of software delivery across New Zealand, Australia, and beyond. A big thanks to Wires Uncrossed for supporting the Tech Waka mission and backing the voices of our tech leadership community. To learn more, go to wiresuncrossed.co.nz. Hi, it's Jakub, and welcome back to the Tech Waka podcast. Today we are talking about big, messy, high-stakes transformation programs, the kind that can make or break careers. My guest is Allan Sampson, Executive General Manager at Gentrack. Allan spent more than 25 years in energy and utilities, leading large software and business transformations. In this conversation, we get into what really makes transformation hard. Not just the technology, but alignment, governance, vendor-client dynamics, and all the people stuff that often doesn't show up in the steering committee meetings. If you are a technology leader and you are in Aotearoa wrestling with a complex program, this one will feel very close to home. Let's get into it. Hi, Allan. How are you doing?
Great, Jakub. Nice to be here.
Can you tell us a bit more about your background and what you're doing?
I've been in the energy industry and software for over 27 years now, and a very long background in transformation projects at a large scale. Done a lot of them over my time and in very different roles. So I started out as an engineer, software engineer, and heavily involved in the technology and the technical roles within large programs. And then moved into more consulting, solution architect type roles and spanning those across my career. And then more recently into leadership roles with program directorship and then governance roles on the exec now and steering committees. And still through that time, a real focus on large programs. So well versed in them and a lot of different sort of roles that reflect what I've done on the programs.
Can you paint a bit of a picture of those transformations, what they were and what was the scale of them, some of the constraints that you had to deal with?
In the programs that I've worked on in the energy and utilities industry, so electricity, water, largely programs around that, delivering software. So implementing software programs into large organizations, whether they're upgrades or system replacements, typically with very large scale data migrations to deal with as well, which is always a key aspect of those transformation projects. And a focus on, I think, clearly technology in delivering and implementing software, but typically what goes along with those programs is a business transformation as well. So retailers and utilities that are looking to replace that software are also looking often to change their operating system, their ways of working, and going through a significant transformation. These programs are complex in that they involve obviously people and software, but also the stakes are high when you think about the business case that's formed, the expectations that are set that the program's going to deliver. the timelines, the cost and budget for these, right up to board level. You think about all the stakeholders across them. People's jobs are on the line, their reputations are on the line. And as I said, the stakes are high and therefore tension builds throughout.
And I think there is some statistics, and I can't remember exact number from either McKinsey or Deloitte, that 70%, 75% of transformations fail. Where do you think that transformations actually get hard? Is it technology? Is it politics? Is it people? Is it change? What is it that makes it so hard?
I think the answer to that is it's all of those things. And it can actually be a case where any one of those things can pull the whole thing down. So if you think about all of those factors that are required for a successful transformation project like this, if one of those things is lagging or conflicted, then you can be in trouble. And it can happen over a gradual process throughout the program, or something can happen to start to pull it down quite quickly. So I think those statistics are very important to think about and look back on some of those programs that have failed and why. And when you look at them across the board, what I see is it's usually a combination of several of those things. The key factors when I look at it is the right people, the governance and who's running the program and how that's being run. And when you bring in more and more organizations, partners and client vendor relationships and all of those things, when you bring more and more in and you stack those all on top of each other, that just gets exponentially more and more complex, right? So you bring all of those factors in. And then on the other side of it, you've got the technology, right? Now, if the technology is not capable, it's not ready, it needs to be built. There's a lot more to do. We don't know how long it's going to take. And you're bringing in a lot of that, I think, discord or a lack of, I think, shared understanding between governance and stakeholders and the technical people who are either building or working hard in that technical space to deliver what's expected of them. So all of those things are obviously very complex, and you add all that up and you've just got a powder cube of problems.
Yeah. And I think you added that dimension of vendors and clients, different stakeholders. With those big transformation programs, you have tens, if not hundreds of people involved sometimes, and they all have different understanding of the transformation. They have different interests, different experiences that they bring, what worked in the past, what didn't, and they try to apply this in the new context. How do you make sure that people are actually aligned?
Yeah, look, I think that's really the key is alignment, right? If you think about how you achieve alignment and what are the steps you need to take. Now, you've got a lot of different even ways of working and methodologies to run these programs, right? Especially when you think about whether you're doing a waterfall approach or agile or anything in between, hybrid, there's all sorts now, right? And so alignment often, I think, is everyone's aligned at the start. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, we know what we're trying to achieve. We're all trying to get to the same goal. We know what we're doing. We know what we're setting out to do. But what's actually going on often is there's quite different expectations that are not actually surfaced. And so trying to get that alignment is really about, as you start and as the engine starts to build up and run, what's really going on? Have we truly got alignment? And there's a lot of methodologies and practices for that, which I won't go into in this because I think that's more about that discipline. But in terms of governance and project reporting, making sure there is alignment, following one source of truth and all of that, it's absolutely key. But also, for me, it's about how do you dig into what's really going on with the teams and the people. And really what solves that problem is good leadership throughout the program at all levels of the combined teams.
So good leadership, how would you define or describe some of the characteristics of good leadership in those situations?
I think good leaders know how to conduct themselves in stressful situations and deal with complexity quite well. And we're talking about leaders in the technical space here, right? So leaders of technical people, technical capabilities. So good leadership is about really being able to tap into what's going on, know the team, be able to build a diverse team and be able to get that team performing. That's ultimately what we're trying to do as leaders, is to achieve that performance, and knowing that what we're going into with these transformation programs is bringing a whole lot of different people, different organizations and different people, different backgrounds, disciplines, bringing them all together and trying to get that running. And as we talk about alignment, getting everyone running in the same direction to the same set of expectations and objectives. When you look at the layers of leadership, as you go several layers, difference of layers from the top to the bottom and everywhere in between, the differences emerge throughout that. So when you're when you're building that team and or running that team, authentic leadership builds trust, right? So how do you get that connection with the team that you're leading, whatever level within the transformation that is really about how you conduct yourself and run throughout the program. You build that trust. People start to look at you and trust in you because they're seeing someone who's calm under pressure, able to help resolve situations and problems that are going on, and not necessarily just resolve them yourself, but enable and empower teams to be able to resolve those problems as well. And I think over time, you get a reputation, right? So if you've led people through several programs over spanning a long time, you certainly build up that reputation and there's trust, and that's already there, right? So when you're bringing people like that into a program, it's great. And then when new people are coming in, they're looking for, what am I going to get from this leader? What's the support? What's the direction? How that's going to go? So building that trust is incredibly important. And a big part of the leader's role is to be able to build that trust within the team as well.
I wonder if you've seen also something that I've seen is that the higher you are, the hardest problems get to you, because the easy problems are solved by people in teams and then other leaders. And then when a problem is escalated to your level, it's usually a hard problem because no one was able to solve it this far. So now it's up to you to actually solve it. And especially if you talked about those stressful situations or high pressure situations, and then you on top of that, you're getting problems that no one else could solve. How do you deal with that?
When you look at some of the problems that escalate from a technical perspective, I think that's still about understanding what's going on. Like, I'd say the technical side of it is more predictable, right? So those are, whilst they're complicated, they're less complex, right? So you can think about more predictable problems like that to solve. But I think as a leader, and the more experience you get in leadership, probably the less in the technical space you get as well. So you're still relying on the right people to solve those problems. So often that is actually about helping them to maybe reimagine what's going on or relook at things. But what I find is more often it's actually about conflict that's come forward. There's a difference of opinion, or there's commercial stakes that are they're not aligned and things need, decisions made. So there's two different things here when you think about escalation and what's coming at you. Some of it just needs a decision, and you just have to make a decision, and you go with what you've got. You get all the information that's available, and you make a call, right? And you consider all the factors that are involved in that, the people and the stakeholders and everything going on, and consult who you need to make a call. And that's about clear leadership and decision making. But then there's the other side where it's actually making a decision here is going to have a ramification around if it's come from two inherently different viewpoints and there's disagreement, and that actually needs resolving, right? The problem isn't actually the decision needs made. There's a problem with what needs to be resolved and what's surfacing to you. And I think that's a really key thing when you look at leadership and how you deal with that. Often conflict resolution is about working through that problem from a people perspective and an understanding, and trying to work it through that way.
Yeah, and quite often personalities that just don't work together. Someone
All
who's
the time.
visionary, who just want to focus on the future, who's very optimistic, versus someone who's very detailed, risk averse, and trying to just understand or have plan for everything. And you get those two people together and then expect them to just work.
Yep.
Yes, that may
And both
work
sides
for
are
one
right.
or-
They're both right in some way. They've got their
100%.
opinions, and they're very, when you get them at opposite ends of the spectrum like that, you really have a lot of work to do to bring them together.
Yeah.
And often that's about holding the mirror up to them, right? And showing them how they're behaving in these situations.
Yeah.
How they're showing up. helping them to think about the impact that they might be having on the rest of the team or that individual, and really exploring that with them, because often in those situations, they're right. They're adamant that what they're talking about or what they're thinking is absolutely right, and often it is. But it's not necessarily about that. It's actually about how that's coming through and how to shape that behavior into something that still brings the skills and still brings the quality and the value that they're bringing to the team, but in a way that they can really work with the rest of the team.
Especially that those skills that they bring can be super useful, because you need those people who are, again, visionary, who can show where we're going. And you also need those detail-oriented people who can analyze, who can spot risks that otherwise you wouldn't spot. And you need to be able to talk about those risks, right? I think I agree that it's quite often understanding when those behaviors and personalities are useful, when they are not, and they're going to be different phases of the transformation or these big projects that you need to dial in and then dial down on those behaviors and help the team to use what's useful for them.
Yeah, definitely. And as these programs often go off the rails and there's problems, it's also about who can help lead through that. And it is that sort of calm under pressure, but reliable leaders that can help bring other people through troublesome times and really guide others through that with a level of confidence that helps build confidence in others, right? So you've got that situation where leaders will emerge. Like, these transformation programs bring so much opportunity for people to develop, and especially people that don't go through them often and over again. People with careers like myself and in the software industry, you do a lot of these over time, right? But for people that are perhaps like we find with on our customer side, who might do one every 10 years of that, right? And these are game changing and can be career building if you look at the opportunities that are available on these programs, doing something different. And so people who take those opportunities and can lead others through it really do shine. And what you've got to look at is, who are the leaders? Who are the followers? And often, I don't really necessarily like the term followers, but what you're looking for there is the people that just want to get on with their job. And so if you think about engineers in particular, often they just want to do a good job and they don't want to be sitting in meetings all day and answering to this, that, and the other thing. And how do you just remove those barriers and let them get on with it, but also know enough about what's going on? So you've got that. And then the third group, I suppose, is the detractors, right? So as soon as things start to go wrong and there's problems, they're the first ones to say, I told you, and it's not going to work out, and the sky's falling down. And how do you deal with them as well? Because you've got to get them on board and still adding value, or just work that through, that this isn't the right space and these projects are not where you should be. And that's something you have to deal with, because those individuals can really bring the team down.
Yeah, and I think that's probably another aspect there. Team dynamics, and how do you make sure that the team is working well together through the conflicts, through those different types of leaders and followers, detractors. Do you have any tips in that space? How do you approach working with a team like that?
So if you think about safety as a prerequisite, right? When we talk about safety as a prerequisite, for what? Right? What is safety a prerequisite for? What do you think?
For collaboration, for achieving outcomes. Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what it's for, right? Because if you have that, if you can build that safety, performance comes through, and people can operate in the best environment for them to perform, and they'll work better with others, and things will start cohesion shape, right? One of the things that's often, I think, when we think about safety, that can be misguiding or misconstrued, is safety is not about comfort. So if you think about a safe environment, you can take that as, well, I just want to stay in my comfort zone and I'm safe here. But safety as a prerequisite to performance and collaboration is actually about the ability and the trust within that team environment for people to be able to actually have the really difficult conversations and call out the things that are going to help performance improve, right? And so when you think about that, is the key, is to be able to build up within a team through that forming, storming, and norming, and then and performing. Like you've got to get that environment in a stable state where safety is there, but that doesn't mean you just rest there, right? Because then you can really get that team performing and get people out of that comfort zone and into that performance zone, which really is just, that's the game changing, right? You see the people that really just go there straight away and love being in that space, but you've really got to work on those that want to be in that space, but aren't comfortable enough to do it. So I think that's where good leadership shines, when you really get people in, not just people, but teams performing in that way.
And you mentioned those 4 stages of the Tuckman's model, going from forming, storming, norming, performing. In that model, actually, there's the 5th stage that we often forget about and we don't mention, which is adjourning. So what happens after a program finishes and the team stops being a team, and because they maybe are moving to different projects or different programs, different teams, and they need to go through the stages again. What is your experience with this phase, letting go of being a team and moving to other things?
Yeah, it is often overlooked or ignored completely. I think when you think about that, you've got to look at reflecting on how the program went, and when individuals reflect on their journey and their experience of it, and then the team and how they felt. And often with these programs, the team's not even stable, right? They've been on, I started on this, and then I ended up on this, and I worked on it. So often it is about the collective. At what level do I feel like, okay, that was the team I was in? So one of the key things for me is people are really hard on themselves. And I think generally that also is reflected across a program. You tend to think about what's going wrong at any point in time. And so in a troubled project or program, you probably spend 90% of your time in the problem area, right? Where's the problem? I need to find that and solve that. And so when you come out the end of it and it's hopefully gone, that's a really important time to be able to reflect on what's gone on, also what hasn't gone, and learn from that. But it's also a really good time to be able to share more openly, perhaps some of the things that you probably wouldn't have wanted to get too much into during the program. So I think there's an important part in terms of celebrating success and making sure that at different levels, teams, organizations, and wider program teams that span organizations come together, celebrate, retrospectively look at what's gone and what's not, what are the lessons learned, and then take that wherever they go in the next part of their journey. Yeah. And that's something that, as you said, is often overlooked and not done. With budgets closed, we're finished, we're done, move on. And then you go back to your line manager or next role or whatever it is, and everyone just disperses, right? So the celebration's often done, definitely, right? You got to celebrate it and make sure that there's a big party, and these are big programs that deserve that. But I think the retrospective at that level, when you're going back potentially more than a year, these programs run for, and you look back and, what went well and what didn't, and how do you collectively bring all that together in the learnings?
Yeah, I agree. And we assume that people learn through reflection, which many people do. That's the time when we can really set up the foundations for next program and for that learning and improvement. And maybe another aspect that I think is overlooked in that phase is throughout the program, people often build friendships or really close relationships with each other. And after a program finishes, and it can be within a company, it can be with vendors as well. Sometimes you just have this vendor that you love working with them. You can see how they deliver when they need to deliver the good quality. If they communicate well, if things go wrong, you start trusting those people, and you work with them day in, day out for half a year, for a year, 18 months, and almost suddenly, boom, they are gone. They're not there anymore. And it can feel like you're losing something from your life. So having this chance to celebrate your partners as well, and not so much finishing those relationships, but having a chance to acknowledge, hey, this was really good. I enjoy working with you. Because again, we forget to say these things throughout the program. I think it sets up us for next collaborations, but also just builds us up as people, as teams, and help us in the future.
They're big moments, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're going through that with individuals within a team and you do connect with people, and that's not even just through transformation, because that can be colleagues in your career as you move
Yeah.
on and everything. And I think when you look back on those memories, right, they are big. They're monumental in terms of what you've achieved. And when you really do connect with people on that, you want to keep that going. And we're not colleagues anymore. We're not working together, but you can still keep those relationships alive. And it's interesting that just a few weeks ago, someone reached out who I was on a program with in the early 2000s, and I haven't talked to them since. And it's a great tool for connecting. And it was like, hey, let's catch up, because that was an amazing. We still remember that particular program that we were both on. And there's a lot of memories there, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that have happened in their career since. And that's the sort of thing that I feel like with that individual, it's just an immediate reconnection because of the close connection we had on that particular program. So those things are really important.
And if we go back for a minute to this high pressure situation in those programs, and we are recording it at the end of November, so getting close to the Christmas time, I think many of us are looking forward to the break, but also trying to finish some of the work, some maybe the programs or projects, or deliver features, deliver outcomes. This can be quite stressful right now. How, as a leader, would you deal with stress like this and this high pressure situation? What was your approach?
Yeah, I think there's two aspects as a leader.
Yeah.
There's stress, your own stress, and then
Mhm.
there's identifying and dealing with
Yeah.
stress that you can see from individuals, people in your team. I think firstly to look at stress, how to deal with stress yourself, especially as a leader, because your stress has a far greater impact on others as a leader, right? So you think about as a leader how you show up and how you're presenting. And often you might catch these things after you've just blown up on something and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, but I did. How am I going to deal with that, right? So stress comes in, and it can come in gradually as aspects of whatever's going on in a program. Things build up, tensions building, there's conflict not being resolved, there's things building, and you're getting, and it's starting to come on. So as a leader, how do you identify this? And to me, this comes with experience, right? When you've been through that level of stress and persevered through it and managed the way through it, then you've got something to fall back on and to say, I know how to deal with this because I've done it before and I've done it several times. But also, I think once you've recognized it starting to creep in, what are the avenues to resolve it, right? Because you can't just let it get worse, and you can't let it sit and even stay at the level it is, right? Stress is a good thing in that it can really build resilience, and it's also a good thing for growth, right? It gets you to perform in pressure situations, and ultimately as a leader, you need to do that. So I think first and foremost, it's about identifying it and then taking steps. You must take steps, and whatever they are. That can be about reaching out to someone, often difficult as a leader because, you're the leader. What are you there for if you're not in control yourself? So finding those people that you can connect with and share what's going on, but also relying on the experience you've got, being able to trust yourself in these situations and continue to show up as a good leader, calm under pressure and managing yourself and controlling your own emotions, knowing that has a heavily weighted impact on other people. When you look at stress within teams and individuals, I think it's really about, again, it's the same thing, taking action, but it's a little bit different because you got to dig in to look at what's the root cause, what's going on here. And we talk about safety and the comfort zone versus performance zone and all those things. And ultimately, you want people to be able to use this experience as a positive thing and grow from it and learn. But it's such a tightrope to manage what level of stress is okay. And so I think that's about connecting with the individual and looking at how you can help resolve it, or getting help for them on, you might not be the person to resolve that problem for them, but making sure that they've got those connections with the right people to be able to do it. And then monitoring that over time and seeing how is it getting better or worse? And what can you do? Can you remove some of the sources of that stress or do you need to help them through it? Because sometimes you just can't take those things away. They're necessary for growth. And
Yeah.
performance. Yeah.
And I would quite often find that when I help other people to work through stress is that what they see as a stressful situation or a blocker or something that is causing them stress, it's often not as big as they think it is, but it's just how they see it, their mental models, previous experiences, how they interpret specific. Someone said something and they see it through the lens and they cannot take that step back, being able to help them to see how important it is today, how important it's going to be in a week time, month time, year time. And is it really worth stressing out? And of course, it's not just telling them don't stress,
No,
because then it's
you
probably
can't
adding
just
more to
erase
the stress,
that.
but helping
Why
them
you
see
stressed out
it.
about that? Yeah. If
Exactly.
you go with that approach, you're almost like dismissing that
Exactly,
problem, and that's not the approach, right? So you've
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
you've got to have that level of empathy for it, even if you look at it and go, "Man, I've seen more worse than this." Come on,
Of course.
but
Yeah.
not that at all, right? It's about looking at in their experience and what they're
Yeah.
going through is real. So recognizing it and having that level of empathy and to understand what that looks
Yeah.
like, and then the pathway through and out of it. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
one thing there is, what's in your control, right? So if you're thinking about the stress that someone's under, and I talked about, you must take action on it, right? You can't let it just continue. You've got to do something. Often people don't feel like they're in control. There are steps that they can take, or they don't know what they are, right? So you think this, whatever it is that's bringing this stress on, I'm not in control of that. I can't control that. That's not in my sphere of influence, or something it's affecting me, but it's being done to me. When actually, I think the key for that is to help people realize there are things you can do. You have choice, and help people to realize that they are empowered to make decisions around it, and help them to perhaps explore some of those and what that might be. It's really important.
Yeah. And maybe from my own experience, when I realized I am stressed, what I found throughout the years is that I identified just a handful of techniques that work for me, things that can be useful, and have a list in my notes app. And it's just realizing, stress is increasing to the level that it's not helpful, because stress has different levels and sometimes they are helpful and I enjoy it even.
Yeah.
But when it gets to that level that it's stopping me from being effective or from thinking or from making those decisions, then I have those things like my short meditation, going for a walk, going for a bike ride, calling someone, stop thinking about this for a while. Like these things that I know that worked for me in the past,
Yeah.
I can rely on and go back to, so that I don't have to think what I do now. Actually, I have this repertoire of things that I know can work for me.
And that's where the experience comes in, right?
Yes.
Because when you've gone through that and you've come out the other end of it and you're okay, you do learn what are the things that help. And it's different for everyone, right? Some people love the exercise, and some people go out and socialize with others. And some people, that's the last thing they want to do, right? That's energy draining.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that and that level of experience, I think the key there is to help others, to be able to help others through, what's worked in the past or what that might be. But it's about, for those going through it and don't know might not know what those things are, is how do you help them to explore that? Just get them thinking about, those are the things that are in your control. You can do those. So that's probably I think another thing with that is thinking about how that stress comes on. And often you might be your normal routine is quite healthy, exercise, socialize. As stress comes on, for some reason, you lose motivation for those things. It's what you might instead go to the fridge and start eating, or a bit more drink, or whatever it is that you wouldn't normally do. But stress is actually bringing that on, and can be a bit of a downward spiral.
Yeah.
So it's about trying to break that as you see it. How can you combat that and think, no, that's not helping me. I need to be more mindful of what I'm doing as I react to the stress that's coming on. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe just to wrap up more on positive note. You've been doing this transformation work, as you said, for many years. What keeps you going? What's the thing that you want to keep doing this, and what makes you so good at this?
I think for me, leadership is what I love. There's so much opportunity for achievement and development in other people. That's what I love. That's what motivates me through these programs, because they are hard. They're complex. They're very challenging, but with that challenge comes opportunity. So there are a concentration of opportunity for growth and development, right? When you look at that, it's the fastest and optimal way for helping others to grow. And that's what I love as a leader, to be able to help them to develop, and do that in such a, as I said, a concentrated amount of time. You see it happening much quicker than over a career or day-to-day work. So that's probably the key thing I love about the transformation. Of course, the success and the memories and the stories as we go through and do a lot of these over time, they're all unique in many ways, but they've got similarities as well. So I love that. And these programs are mostly about people, and it takes the people to get you there. So at least still today, when AI comes in, maybe not. But at the moment, transformation projects are about people, and that's what I love.
That is a beautiful way to wrap up. Thank you, Allan. Really great to have you on the podcast, and hopefully we can maybe do parts 2. So.
Excellent. I'd love to. Yeah, great talking to you. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you. That's it for today's episode of the TechWaka podcast. A huge thank you to Allan Sampson for sharing the reality of the large-scale transformations, the tension, the politics, the stress, and the opportunities for real leadership. For me, the big takeaway is this. Safety isn't about keeping everyone comfortable. It's about creating an environment where people can have hard conversations and still want to come back tomorrow. If we can do that as leaders, we give our teams a chance to grow through the storm, not just survive it. If this episode was useful, please share it with one other leader in your world who's in the middle of a tough program. And if you haven't already, hit follow on TechWaka in your podcast and find us on LinkedIn for more conversations like this. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.